It's been wet and miserable here, so not good conditions for a weight pulling test. So I still don't know how well this locomotive works. But I've decided, whatever the outcome of those trials, I'm keeping this machine. All along I was thinking, if it's not strong enough to do the job, then I'll just rebuild it with more weight or a bigger engine or more conventional gearbox. But I've come to like it just as it is, and it will certainly do some jobs. If it turns out that it can't do all the jobs I need, well then I'm just going to have to build another one, an extra locomotive sometime. The next one could be bigger and heavier and stronger, but you see, that might mean too much weight on those skinny homemade tracks. They might just buckle over sideways, or the points blades might bend or something. So making a bigger locomotive might not be such a good idea anyway. But possibly, this is what I was thinking anyway, I could make a second small one, something like this one, and perhaps they could work together in tandem. And yeah, I know I need another driver, but if we had two of them, between them, they could just maybe pull up a really big load up the hill. So lots to think about, and maybe it won't be necessary anyway, we'll see. Either way, while it's coming down in buckets outside, I've been finishing off this one. Putting a small but important cover over the drive wheel and the driven wheel, stop them getting wet. I made a cardboard template and used it on some roofing sheet. But I forgot to flip the cardboard over first, so I drew it again the right way around, otherwise it would be a mirror image. Luckily I hadn't cut anything yet. I could have made a much larger cover to cover more bits, but I don't want to cover up the old Lister engine, which is obviously the heart of this machine. I mean, if you covered it up, you may as well have a modern pull cord, high revving engine like everything else seems to have these days. A few rivets and it's ready for final fitting. The only other thing that's really needed is a foot plate, somewhere safe to put your feet while you're going along. But what style should that be? Well, of course, style is far too big a word to use with this machine. As you know, this locomotive evolved over a few months. I didn't have any kind of a design in the beginning, so it ended up a bit of a hodgepodge. Well, not just a bit of a hodgepodge, it's a full dollop of hodgepodge, really. For instance, the seat came from the market. It's cast iron and probably made in Ireland in the late 19th century for a horse-drawn hay rake or something like that. Long before tractors, anyway. I could have found a completely different one, different design of seat, if I'd waited a while, but that's what I have, and it has a particular distinctive pattern of piercings, so I thought I'd better borrow some of that for the footplate design so that they sort of match. And of course it also has a name included already. Victor. Can you see that? Victor. I can't argue with that, can I? It's cast in iron. So Victor it is. But in light of the job that this locomotive has to do, and in honour of the mighty insects that we all need, I added a couple more words into the design. Now, I would like to point out that this is the most intricate job I've done on the CNC plasma machine since the new software arrived. 64 piercings in 3mm steel plate, 64 cutouts if you like. Of course, if I'd chosen a different, less complicated seat in the first place, then the footplate design would be simpler and there would be less cutouts. And that would have saved a lot of time trying to copy all those loops and filigrees. But the cutting itself didn't take long and the plasma cutter worked perfectly. Well, just about perfectly anyway. The first 2 cuts didn't quite drop out. There was obviously very little holding them in place and I could easily have freed them up from the back, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to try a feature of this software. See, the thing is, you can go back and repeat any single path that you like for just such an occasion. Or if the tip fails in the middle of a job or something like that, you can just start from anywhere and cut again any part that needs it. The thing to remember though is to first disable a wonderful thing called the torch height controller. The torch height controller automatically measures the gap between the torch tip and the metal that you're cutting and automatically makes an adjustment if needed whilst it's going along, so it's always at the optimum height, which is brilliant because metal sheets are rarely actually flat and they can warp even while they're being cut out. But you see, if you try to recut a path that's already been cut with the height controller switched on, then it might try to measure the height through the existing cut and then you'd get into a mess. But you can turn off the THC with the touch of a button and turn it on again mid-cut if you want to. Brilliant stuff. Of course, I'll leave a link in the description in case you want one of these things. You too could cut complicated holes out of metal sheet, and who wouldn't want to do that? Anyway, that turned out pretty well, I think, despite being an odd shape to fit in position. So now the seat and the footplate match. But that left the front end looking out of place, so I had to redesign that too so it matched a bit better. It's supposed to be reminiscent of a dung beetle's head, but I wouldn't blame you if you couldn't see it. It's not very good really. And that piece has over 100 piercings. And again, no problems at all for the marvellous plasma cutting machine. What else? Oh yes, I cut out a clutch handle to replace the vice grips I've been using. I just glued on a couple of wooden scales. And then roughed them out on the bandsaw. And then shaped them so that they were more comfortable to hold. Of course, I forgot to film that bit. And then I lifted the engine out again and took the whole locomotive apart, which took a while, and then painted it green, which took a longer while, and then Ashley turned up and helped me put it back together again, and that's pretty much it really. It's far from perfect, but that's okay. I'm not trying to make a showpiece. I'm just trying to stop it rusting away too quickly. And you're right, it doesn't have a horn, but if you can't hear this thing coming down the tracks, then you probably wouldn't hear a horn either, and you're going to get run over. Sorry, no two ways about it. And it doesn't have any brakes because the CVT has worked well enough so far. Of course, that might change. I might need to add some brakes later, but we'll see. And if it's raining, then I'm going to get wet. But it's easier to put on a hat than build some sort of cab. So this is it. This is Victor, the green dung beetle locomotive, soon to be tested to his limits to see how much dung he can pull.